Hello and welcome to The Last Word. Today is the anniversary of the 1984 Sikh killings that left over 3,000 dead. So tonight we ask, 28 years later, do the ghosts of the Sikh massacre still haunt the Congress party? That's with the well-known lawyer who's fighting for justice, H.S. Phoolka, former Delhi Police Commissioner and Governor of Jharkhand, Ved Marwa, and one of those people who spent years helping the Sikhs, former politician Jaya Jetli. Sadly, no one from the Congress party was willing to join us tonight. Mr. Phoolka, because 20 years have passed and in many senses 1984 has faded from people's memory, let me first ask, have the guilty been brought to book or is justice still waiting to be done?
Not at all. You see, first of all, the cases were not registered at all. Then commission after commission, even simply to register the cases, the recommendation of the High Court judge, the retired High Court judge, and the commission, that was being looked after by the police. Then, when the cases were registered, most of the cases were closed, and very few cases, the challans were filed, and in those cases also there was defective investigation. The courts have repeatedly criticized the Delhi police that for conducting the defective investigations again in these cases.
Now, in fact, one of the charge sheets in a murder case against Sajjan Kumar, prepared and signed as far back as April the 8th, 1992,
yes,
has still to this date never been filed in court.
Not been filed.
And I gather that despite reminders from the court, the police have not acted. What does that tell you about the police response?
The police response, the police was accused itself. There is absolutely no doubt. Now the CBI investigation says that the Delhi police was a party to this cover-up. The CBI, in this case of Sajjan Kumar, has deposed before the court that the Delhi police even suppressed the documents, they forged some documents to help Sajjan Kumar.
Would you, as a former police officer, you rose to become Delhi Police Commissioner, but obviously not at that time, much later, would you accept that the Delhi police have been not just negligent, but in certain cases almost complicit in denying justice?
Well, it is not just the Delhi police. I think the whole criminal justice system and the executive combined to delay any inquiry, any action against the culprits.
So the whole system has been complicit.
Whole criminal justice system. And the very fact that we are discussing this case 28 years, not 20 years, 28 years after these incidents took place, and still the case is going on and on and on.
Mr. Jetli, let's step back a little in time. The Hindu in an editorial today says that those Sikh killings were organized and instigated by Congress politicians bent upon using the tragic assassination of Indira Gandhi as an occasion for political manipulation and gain. As someone who was there, as someone who witnessed it, would you agree with that indictment from today's Hindu?
I would definitely, because I was an ordinary citizen then and I'm an ordinary citizen now. I was on the roads begging the police to prevent people from beating up Sikhs. And I was told by them, uniformed men, that I'm not a Sikh and therefore I should just carry on with my business and not worry. We hid Sikhs in our cars, taking them back to their homes, and they didn't dare come out to take their own vehicles back from my home for 3 months. We went to the Lieutenant Governor later, pleading with him, don't put color TVs in the camps. They were wanting the people who were victims, who had been beaten up and stabbed and who had to cut off their hair. They were being given color TVs to watch Mrs. Gandhi's funeral. I don't think anything so callous could have ever happened. And even last year, I remember speaking out that so many advertisements came in the paper remembering Mrs. Gandhi's assassination. And I spoke out saying that why couldn't they have on the same ad at no cost extra remembered the 3,000 Sikhs who were also killed. There would have been some reparation.
Mr. Phoolka, let's focus first on Rajiv Gandhi, because he was in fact the Prime Minister at the time, and in a very real and credible sense, the buck stopped with him. How effectively and diligently, or how poorly and inadequately did his government respond to this terrible crime that was happening almost under his eyes in the capital?
Now, if we say from the reports of the commissions, I'm not saying from my own assessment, Mishra Commission has said the 5,000 army was available in Delhi, but it was not deployed. Now, whose job is to deploy? Number two, evidence has come before Nanavati Commission. Mr. Shanti Bhushan has come and given evidence that he, on 1st November, he went to Narasimha Rao, who was the Home Minister, that army should be called immediately. Narasimha Rao agreed. Narasimha Rao called somebody on the Rex phone, but he could not convince that person to call the army. If the Home Minister wants to call the army, who is the one higher than the Home Minister who can stop it?
In fact, on the 19th of November, Mrs. Gandhi's birthday, just 19 days after her assassination and some 16 days after the killings had ended, Rajiv Gandhi in a public rally said that when a big tree falls, the earth shakes. Many people assumed at the time that this was almost justification for what had happened. And would you now add that it is the equivalent of Narendra Modi's Newtonian justification for 2002, which everyone today condemns?
Well, I won't like to comment on Rajiv Gandhi or Narendra Modi, but the fact remains that 3,000 people were butchered in Delhi, in the capital of the country, and the police machinery was very slothful. Because I held the first inquiry into the role of the Delhi police during the riots, and I found a huge discrepancy between what was happening in the central police control room, where there were any number of reports regarding these distress signal from people who are being attacked, and yet in the most affected police station there was no record of any police movement going to any place of occurrence.
And this is presumably deliberate and probably done under instructions from the top.
Yes.
Well, there is no evidence. I couldn't get any evidence to that effect. But the fact remains that there is no reason for the police not to act unless they think that this is the way to go about it.
Now, in fact, going back to that period once again, Mrs. Jaitley, not only did Rajiv make that remark which seemed like justification, when a big tree falls, the earth shakes, but in January, after winning a momentous re-election, he retained in the cabinet H.K.L. Bhagat, despite the fact that survivors and eyewitnesses had pointed to Bhagat as an instigator of the killings in Delhi. In 85, when this happened, was this perceived as a distinct snub to Sikh sentiments and Sikh feelings?
Well, I can only again revive my memories about that time. We were at the Farash Bazaar camp, and it was just 2 or 3 days later, after these horrible things had happened, H.K.L. Bhagat actually dared to come to the camp, and there was such a huge air of tension. There was no question of anybody falsely accusing, nothing had happened, but everybody suddenly got completely terrified. We had to shut the gates and keep him out.
Okay.
Mother Teresa came, other people came, and they felt lovely about it. But I also went to H.K.L. Bhagat's house with Sikhs to plead with him to not let people off on bail. His office was cyclo-styling bail applications in the same language and passing them out to people who had been butchering the Sikhs just a few days earlier. I am witness to all these things.
You were reluctant, Mr. Marwa, to talk about Rajiv Gandhi. I accept that reluctance. But I want to focus not now on Rajiv Gandhi anymore. I want to focus on the police who years, in fact decades after Rajiv's death, have still not wanted to pursue the matter, but have shown that they're actually attempting to cover up. I gather that in 2005, 2 months after a Delhi cantonment police station transferred a case to the CBI, and therefore it was no longer in their charge, the same police station filed a closure notice and thus gave a clean chit to the accused. And then, when the matter went to the Delhi High Court, 5 years later in 2010, and the High Court ticked off the police and demanded from the police commissioner that the guilty police officers be punished, nothing was done, and 2 years have lapsed since then, and still nothing has been done. How do you explain this police behavior almost 20 years and more after Rajiv Gandhi died?
Not only the police officers didn't take action, some of those officers, you'll be surprised to know, that I am the one who held inquiry against them. They filed a case against me. Somebody is obviously egging them on.
But still egging them on in 2010 and 2012? I mean, that means today's government is egging them on?
After 28 years, there is a case pending against me on the complaint of some of these officers who were at that time.
So you're suggesting that people in authority today in 2012 are somehow egging the police on not to pursue justice, even though 28 years have passed?
I don't know whether they're an authority or not, but what I can say is that they're an influential person. Obviously, and there is money and everything behind it. It costs a lot of money. Mr. Phoolka will probably know that pursuing 28 years of litigation
is expensive.
Needs a lot of resources.
Mr. Phoolka, the flip side is that the present Prime Minister several years ago did apologize, and in Parliament, Mrs. Gandhi apologized in Amritsar. No doubt, those were significant. But in the eyes of those who are seeking justice for their near and dear ones who were killed and haven't got that justice, is an apology sufficient?
You see, then tell the Prime Minister to change the law of the nation. Change the IPC, that if a murderer apologizes, it's not even a murder, it's the Prime Minister, not even then. That if somebody apologizes for the murder, then after that no punishment, forget about it. Now when the law of the land says that in murder cases, even if whatever may be the time lapse, the guilty has to be punished, and this is to secure the future. Now this is the punishment, criminal jurisprudence says punishment acts as a deterrent, because 84 guilty are not punished. It's happening again and again. It happened in Mumbai, Gujarat, today in Assam.
Quite right. Because you didn't bring the guilty of 84 to justice, you are in a sense giving a signal that people can get away.
Get away.
But you're also saying something that for the Sikhs who lost their near and dear ones, an apology is not sufficient.
Not at all. Now we see today, now only I am coming from a photo exhibition, which we see the people standing in front of the photographs and crying.
Mrs. Jaitley, looking back after 28 years, would you say that this is actually India's forgotten crime, one that we've tried deliberately, sometimes unintentionally, to sweep under the carpet, but under the carpet it's been swept?
Certainly it can never be swept for many, many, many people. And I don't think, as Mr. Phoolka has said, a sorry, an apology is enough. That is a very superficial thing. Sometimes people will say sorry, sometimes they won't. It's easy to just say words. You have to actually make sure the justice system works. The people are punished no matter who they may be. And that is unfortunately in such situations not happening, because all these things are politicized. And they are covered up to politicized, they are talked about to be politicized. And we're just using those poor victims and their families and their next generation of people as games in a political chessboard. I'm sorry about this, because some things can come to closure, but only if people have some feeling of reparation, which doesn't mean just a sorry. And who's going to say sorry? You can say 10 sorries, but if you leave them the same position, and then you hurt them every day through other ways. There are police officers who have not only had cases, of course, Ved Marwa saying, but there are people who have been awarded, who have been promoted, who actually got Sikhs fired upon.
Quite right, and that is the horrific part of it.
Sikhs who tried to defend themselves got locked up.
That is, in a sense, part of the horrific nature of the way we've responded. Rather than give justice, we've promoted those who are accused and are perhaps guilty of instigating and carrying out violence. Would you therefore say, Mr. Marwa, that when we talk about the ghosts of 84 still haunting the Congress, the real reason is the failure to bring to book those who are guilty, those who we probably know are guilty, we probably have proof of their guilt, but refuse to act to actually bring them to book?
Oh, absolutely. It's a failure of our political system, it's a failure of our criminal justice system, and the very fact that these people can delay it because they know that public memory is short. If these things, unless people like you who take it regularly, on regular basis, bring it to on the television screen, otherwise these cases are forgotten.
Okay, these cases are forgotten if we do not bring to book those who are responsible. Let's take a break and ask ourselves one critical question. What then do we need to do to ensure, even after 28 years, that the guilty, many of the guilty actually known to be guilty but not so far proven, are brought to book? And in a sense, justice is given even 3 decades later to those who suffered so horribly 28 years ago this very day. That's in a moment's time. See us after the break. We're discussing the Sikh massacres of 1984, which began on this very day 28 years ago. Mr. Phoolka, let's come to the question, what do we need to do to bring the guilty to justice? The Hindu today in an editorial suggests that taking a leaf out of the 2002 cases, the Supreme Court must step in. Would you agree?
That is right. In fact, that's what I was going to say when Mr. Marwa said that the whole system failed. Even the judiciary also failed in this case. And this is precisely the reason that Justice Krishna Iyer has written a letter to the Prime Minister, and that's supported by Falin Nariman and others. When that's to the Prime Minister to form a SIT from outside the Delhi police officials and to be supervised by the Supreme Court.
Has this letter to the Prime Minister been delivered, or is it yet to be delivered?
Because we are collecting the signatures in support of that letter. Many people like...
When will you deliver it to the PM?
On 3rd of November, we are holding a candlelight vigil at Jantar Mantar, and after that candlelight vigil, we will hand over this letter to the Prime Minister.
I'll take up the question of an SIT in a moment's time. But what about the Supreme Court itself stepping in to give directions, which is what happened in the Gujarat cases? Have you as a lawyer thought of that? Have you petitioned the court to step in?
I am sorry to say, normally if it's a lawyer shouldn't be criticizing the court, but we had a very, very bad experience even with the judiciary also.
You've been let down by them?
But you see, in 1990, Sajjan Kumar was arrested. After his arrest, one judge of Delhi High Court, he sits down at 10:50 and grants him anticipatory bail after he was arrested.
10:50 at night?
10:50 in the morning, before the court starts. CBI arrest him. After the arrest, anticipatory bail, never heard of. Then after that, Justice Ward was about to pass the orders of registering the case against Sajjan Kumar. He said, well, there's the affidavit of a widow. What more you need? Government lawyer took time, and before the next date of hearing, the new Chief Justice was brought in. The matter was withdrawn from Justice Ward's court. This is the kind of the things we have seen.
Let's come to this question of an SIT. There is a petition, as Mr. Phoolka says, that will be presented to the Prime Minister, signed by people like Justice Krishna Iyer and Falin Nariman, all of whom are very highly regarded. Do you think an SIT is in fact essential? And I add one thing before you answer, that it was in fact the good collection of evidence done by the SIT in the Gujarat cases that has led to prosecution there. So do we need one here as well?
Well, if you go by the model of Gujarat, then there is very little doubt that SIT did help in bringing culprits to justice. And I think now, of course, it is 28 years, it is not easy to investigate all those cases because a lot of evidence is destroyed.
But would you recommend an SIT in this case as well?
Well, it should be, because it will at least satisfy the people that every effort, even at this late stage, has been made to bring culprits to justice.
Mrs. Jaitley, beyond the question of what the Supreme Court can do, beyond the question of an SIT, the Hindu also says that we should build a fitting monument in Delhi to honor the memory of the victims, and I would add, to constantly remind us of the bestiality we were once capable of. Would you, as someone who lived through that period, endorse that suggestion?
Not only would I endorse it, but I am really happy that the Hindu suggested it now. I have been working on this for 4 or 5 years. We had a little bit of money left over from the People's Relief Committee at that time, and I thought that we must keep that for this memorial. I even have had a memorial designed, but I was told that nobody would give us space from the present government in Delhi. All we need is a little corner somewhere, and not to politicize it, but to remind the public that we must never let these kind of things happen again. Wherever the riots may be, genocide even worse, but somewhere we wanted a cleansing to take place in people's minds, whether it's the police, the government, or even the citizen who goes mad suddenly when there's a riot. But in this particular case, it was so cold-blooded, it was one-sided, and I believe that in Delhi there should be a memorial, and anybody who can put their hand to it, I'm already there.
Well, Mr. Jaitley, let's hope your advice is taken. There is, in 2 years' time, the 30th anniversary, a sort of sad landmark, but might be the case that to mark that landmark, the memorial might be a fitting response. My thanks to you for joining us in studio today. My thanks also to Mr. Phoolka and Mr. Marwa. And if you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night.